Hello everyone, welcome back to the new video, and in this video we are going to discuss the difficulty that we are facing during the animal classification. Okay, if we do not take into consideration about the common features. Okay, so student, animal classification, first of all it's very challenging. Okay, when we will not take into consideration about the common features, okay, as it can disrupt the fundamental basis for grouping of the organism systematically. Okay, so we are going to discuss the main difficulties that arises, okay, in detail. So the first difficulty we are facing is the loss of consistency. Okay, so I will write all the points, okay, and then I will explain you one by one. So the first is loss of consistency, then there will be a difficulty in identifying the relationship. Okay, the third one is the confusion in the practical application. Okay, and the fourth one is the over reliance on unique characteristics. Okay, so now these are the main four difficulties that is faced in the animal classification. Okay, so first now we will discuss them one by one. So let's start with the loss of consistency. Okay, so student, we all know the classification, it relies on grouping of the organism. Okay, the based on their shared characteristics. Okay, so we will group one kind those organism together that will show the similar kind of characteristics. Okay, so the classification relies basically on grouping organism based on the shared characteristics that will ensure the consistency across the taxonomy. So when we are not taking into consideration the common features, the categorization, it would lack the uniformity. So there will be lack of uniformity. Okay, here I will write it in bracket. The if the common feature are not considered. Okay, okay, so these difficulties we are facing if we are not considering the common features. Okay, so there will be lack of uniformity. Okay, because the grouping of into a particular group, okay, is based on the common feature. Okay, the second difficulty is that, for example, the mammals, that they are grouped together because they have a same kind of features like producing milk, having hairs, and they are being warm-blooded. Okay, so if these common traits were ignored, the species like whales, dogs, and bats, okay, so these will also share the similarities, okay, with the human in terms of, I told you, warm-blooded, okay, producing milk. So if we don't consider these common feature, then where they will go? So they will be lying scattered, okay, across different group, leading to the inconsistencies as classification. So I hope you understand why it is very important to do the groupism based on the common feature. Okay. Now let's understand the second point, that is difficulty in identifying the relationship. So the common feature, students, they will help in determining the evolutionary relationships also. Okay, and also contribute towards understanding the shared ancestries. Okay, so if we ignore, okay, so we will have the obscure phylogenetic link. Okay, if we ignore the common feature, then there will be obscure phylogenetic link, like that is the, we will miss the very important ancestral link between the various species. So it will make it further harder to trace how the species has evolved. So how we can understand this? We can take the example of reptiles and the birds. So both these reptiles and birds, okay, they will share the certain traits, like they will have the scales or they are laying eggs. Okay, so these traits of laying egg and the scales in the body, okay, indicates that they will have the common ancestor. So if you are not taking these shared traits, okay, as a basis, then understanding their evolutionary connection, it would have become almost impossible. Okay, so you understand this, that there will, if we ignore the common features, then there will be too much difficulty in identifying the relationship and shared ancestries. Now let's come to the third point, that is the shared confusion in practical application. So student, the classification, it's just isn't the theoretical, it has practical application also. Okay, so in what area it has the application? It has application in the field of conservation, okay, medicine and agriculture. Okay, now a lack of grouping that is based on the common features, it could lead to the practical problem also. For example, how you can understand this? In medicine, we have to identify different types of pathogen, like there is bacteria or the viruses. Okay, so these identification is based on the shared characteristics only. Okay, so it would be very difficult to then identify the useful bacteria that will, or the viruses of the fungus that will have the medicinal potential. Okay, second, the conservation efforts often prioritize species, okay, with certain traits, like the endangered mammals. So without common trait, how the categorization would be there, right? So categorization would be too ambiguous, complicating the protection measures also. Okay, so this will create, if you are not considering the common feature, okay, in animal classification, so this will create the confusion in the practical application also. Okay, so the fourth one is the over reliance on the unique characteristics. Okay, so if classification student focus only on the unique feature, then the process could become unwieldy, okay, with each species being placed in its own group. So you got my point. For example, you can understand this, that in the platypus it has unusual traits, like, so the platypus, now this species, it has unusual trait. So what are the unusual trait? It lays eggs, okay, but it's not mammal. Oh sorry, it's a mammal. So now student, the mammals, they don't lay eggs, right? But the platypus is a mammal, but still it lays egg. Okay, so if you ignore this shared feature with other mammals like milk production and fur, it could isolate it in its own group. Okay, so this will disrupt the broader classification, then it will be not included in the mammals, right? So this will leads to more confusion and over reliance, right? The species will have their own group only, every species. Okay, we can understand this further by taking the example of amphibian versus fish. Okay, so let's consider student the amphibian and the fish. Okay, we can understand this by amphibian versus fish. Okay, now both of them, they share some features, such as they are living in the water, okay, during some stage of their life cycle, and they have the gills also, they have the egg laying capacity also. Okay, if they were ignored, these common features, they were ignored, their classification would lose the coherence. Okay, so the frog, that is amphibian, and certain fishes that might be grouped together based on unique trait despite their vastly different adaptation for land versus water. Okay, so ignoring common feature, it will undermine the purpose of classification. Okay, which is to organize species logically based on the evolutionary structure similarities. Okay, so this deviation student, it will lead to inconsistency, loss of clarities and the practical difficulties. So I hope this is clear to you. Thank you for watching the video.